Good morning to 5 Minutes Thoughts. Welcome to my audio log. So number 12 of course means dozen, or a dozen is a grouping of 12. Something that made me think of while starting this audio log is eggs. A dozen of eggs. Now I say this because it is the first time in my life that I've seen something weird, or at least it is very weird to me. In UK, why are eggs sold in half a dozen? I mean, I understand not everyone needs a dozen of egg. However, egg doesn't spoil that easily. Or if it spoils that easily, I wonder, how are you storing them? Back home, eggs are always sold in a dozen. And the other crazy part to me is half a dozen of egg, or 6 eggs, are way more expensive than a dozen of eggs back home. But not only that, and you know the not free-range eggs? I don't get how 15 non-free range eggs are so cheap, sometimes even cheaper than 6 free-range eggs. It's like, I just don't understand. Some other things that made me realize is, in this country, cheap things are usually the things that are produced in an industrial way, and not necessarily the freshest thing. Back home, the cheapest thing is the freshest thing. Hence, our cheap food, or cheap people food, it's very delicious. Whereas in this country, cheap people food is mostly frozen food. And some food, of course, frozen food are nice. I'm not going to say they're not. As a student, many times frozen food saved my day. Still, frozen food is not the most delicious, I would say, or rather, it can be made delicious if it's used or cooked in the right way. Now, of course, everyone has their taste buds and there is a different connotation or meaning about tasty. I looked into this, and the reason behind it is, after war, UK wasn't able to catch up with the fresh market, and they had a very close link with the American. Hence, they picked up a lot of their teachings from the American brothers on how to supply food. That's why you'd see that frozen foods are very common. This reminded me another thing. A couple of months back, while I was doing my internship at work, one of my colleagues, we were talking about our childhood food. And it was weird how, to me, childhood food was the pizza that the neighbor made, or the fresh bread that I picked up from the bakery, the milk that I went to the nearest farm and asked the guy to milk me the milk right in front of me and then take it to mom and she will process it. That was fresh food. That was my childhood food. Whereas to him was frozen things that you could buy from Iceland, frozen things that you could buy from the major retailer shops. Of course, it depends where you're based. If you're based in a village like I was, fresh food is your ordinary food. But still, I would say that back home, even if you lived in a big city, please change me if I'm wrong, generally fresh food was the cheapest food, and not vice versa, where the frozen food is the cheapest food. This brought me back another memory. The memory was about when I first came to UK. Back home, when you go to the supermarket, in the fresh section or vegetable and fruit section, you can grab a hand gloves to pick up your fruits. Whereas I came here in UK, I went to the supermarket for the first time, and I spent like 1 hour trying to find the gloves to pick up the vegetables. Well, you may be saying, why didn't you go to the shop clerk and ask for it? Well, I didn't know how to speak English, so I was shy. So I went there and I was like, where can I find gloves? And they're like, oh yeah, you can find gloves in that aisle. It's like, if the fresh products are here, why is gloves in an aisle 10 aisles down from here? And then it's like, okay, can you show me? So she took me there, and then I was like, they thought that I was trying to buy gloves for wearing, not to pick up the fruit. And then I was trying to make her understand, but she didn't understand. And I felt so guilty, like picking up those fruits with my hands and vegetables with my hand and going back home telling Mom, I went to the shops and there wasn't any gloves. And that was something that really, really made me uncomfortable. Also, it is very common to see having fresh things packaged in this country, whereas back home they're usually like in a large box and you pick up whatever you want, how many you want, and then you weight them at the end in the cash machine, but not here. So yeah, this number 12 made me think about all these things. I don't know how they came about to me, but that's what made me think. From number 12 to eggs, to frozen foods, to how supply chain worked, to childhood memories, to plastic gloves. Wow, that's a journey of my brain. Also, plastic gloves, I understand. Nowadays, they're not very eco-friendly. Also, when I went back home last year, they started using these biodegradable ones. So I guess it's a bit better. But even then, what we used to do, if there wasn't any gloves available, you would take the bag where you would take your fruits, take them, like pull them inside out, use them as a glove, pick up the foods and vegetables that you wanted and like put them back in the right way, and then just tie a knot. Now, I don't know why, speaking of tying knots, so I always had this mental dilemma about tying knots. I don't know why. Although it's the same amount of material, I used to think that if I tied a knot and then I waited, this thing will be weighting more. Whereas if I didn't tie the knot, the thing will weigh less. And then, like, I had this weird belief for so many years after, like, until I was like 18 or something, I realized, hold on a moment, they're the same amount of mass or same amount of like volume of material. It doesn't matter if I'm tying a knot or not, the weight shouldn't change. And then I actually ran the experiment, the weight doesn't change. I remember having a fight with my mom once. Mom, don't tie the knot. It will like increase the weight. And my mom was like, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Yeah, I guess I had many things wrong back then. That's a weird journey to go through. Speaking of weird journey, today I went for a walk through a park. Well, I went through this park in my first year of uni, and I remember going through this park with this random first year guy that I met. Can't remember his name, I'm really sorry. He was studying animal science, and we went through this park. This park has like a little stream going through it, and it's not like one big park, it's like this park carries on in little sections throughout different neighborhoods until it reaches the Peak District. And yeah, I had this long walk with this random guy from animal science who taught me about ducks. He was apparently making this research about ducks, how they migrated, what they ate, how they mate, things like that. And I don't know how long I spent, but I remember it was like 10 p.m. and we're still walking through the park, and I'm like, come on, man, can we go back now? So yeah. And today, I went there today for a walk with Archimedes. Yeah, it was refreshing to see that place. A notable thing that came to my mind there was there was a tree, or there were twin trees or twin towers. However, one of the twin was down now, and it feels like there was a strong wind or like it caught fire. I don't think it caught fire, because if it caught fire, then the other one will fall down too. They were quite close to each other. Felt sorry seeing the other half, or the other twin wasn't there anymore. Speaking of other twin, there was these two twin brothers. They're kinda racist back home. However, I have to say, like, they have never seen people of different color. That's why they're like scared. They're scared of things that they know. However, they improved over the years, I would say. And one of the twin died in a car crash. Well, he was driving a bicycle like a hooligan in the middle of the road, and a woman in a Fiat Panda hit him and he died. Yeah, that was wow. That was a weird journey through my brain today. Have a good day and come again.